everyone. Thank you for joining me today with another tech talk regarding Amazon AWS Serverless Application Architecture. And this is another project that I've worked on that I want to share with you guys and basically give you some blueprint guidelines on how to set up a serverless application architecture. Before we get started, please hit the like button, please subscribe so we can continuously share this content with others and help them grow as well. Okay? So I was at this company, and one of the things that they wanted to do was go from on-premises application to working with their apps in the cloud. And so I took some time. I had worked with AWS before, got my AWS certification. So I took some time to just do some research and find out what they want to do. And since they were new to building and going into the cloud, going into AWS, I thought it would be good to start them off slowly and give them some good groundwork to get into using AWS architecture in the cloud, right? So one of the things that I shared with them, of course, we're going to have a web browser for users to basically submit their requests, and using dynamic API calls over the HTTPS internet gateway, right? So what we were going to be using is what I share with them is Amazon S3 buckets, so the data can go and flow and have a central location for data to go in. Amazon Cognito, AWS Lambda, Amazon Dynamo Database, and Amazon API Gateway. Now this is a good start for them, and hopefully a good start for you as well if you're not further along. But again, this is a blueprint guide to help you further understand and work with serverless applications. So with working with the serverless applications, first I wanted to explain using the Amazon S3 bucket as a host. So we're going to use Amazon S3 and use it as a static web hosting, okay? So static web hosting where the web resources would come in, which would include HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and certain image files. Image files are necessary for marketing and the sales team. They use that quite a bit. Now, other departments may use it as well, but those are the main two that use the image files. And these can be loaded via the user browser, okay? So next, I would say we were using, user management. User management was the Amazon Cognito that I mentioned, which provided the user management and authentication of functionalities to secure the backend API. So when the user puts in their login, it will get checked by the permissions with the Amazon Cognito, okay? A serverless backend from Amazon DynamoDB, this provides persistent layers of where data could be stored by the API's Lambda function, right? So this was something that was put in place so the serverless backend could be checked and done seamlessly, okay? RESTful APIs, which we used JavaScript to execute across the browser. When the users would basically submit a request, this would send and receive data from public backend API URLs that has been set up, that has been built using Lambda and API Gateway. Now, when the data first is submitted by the user across the web browser, it goes to S3. So now, when you're configuring static web hosting, configure S3 to host static resources for web applications, okay? You're going to use JavaScript to call remote RESTful APIs. You're going to have end users to basically submit the requests and have access to the specific sites using public website URL, okay? This is going to help get them into the S3 bucket where data is or where data needs to go, okay? You're going to select a specific region that you have already set up, so someone would have had to set this up, the engineers, and you're going to use regions for US East, somewhere on the East Coast, Virginia, Florida, New York. On the West Coast, you would use somewhere California, Oregon, all right, to create your S3 buckets on both sides of the region. Now, for Cognito, you're going to create an Amazon Cognito user pool to manage your users' accounts, okay? Again, we're using JavaScript to do this. This helps with the functionality to create a genuine community using basically speaking the same language to make it easier for user IDs and data to come across the Amazon Cognito. Authentication is being used with a secure remote password protocol, SRP, and basically receives back a set of JSON web tokens. So when it goes out, the token is going to come back saying, yes, this person is permitted to have access to this data. So the JSON web token contains identity of the user and will be used in the next module to authenticate against the RESTful APIs. You build with Amazon API Gateway. So when you build with it, it's basically the starting point. It goes in, it checks that person's ID, and according to their permission level, they get access to certain files, certain data, certain gateways into that particular portal. If now in this portal, the data access permissions will basically go to Lambda and DynamoDB, right? So you use AWS Lambda and Amazon DynamoDB to build a backend process for handling requests for your web applications. Implemented in this process was Lambda functions that would basically invoke the user's ID and access each time a user requests what they call a unicorn. So that function basically will be set up and select this particular unicorn type of request from the fleet. It will record the request in a DynamoDB table and then respond to the front end application with details about the specific unicorn that has been dispatched, okay? The function is invoked from the browser using API Gateway. That's where the data comes in, the data comes out, okay? So the next you would need to do is to deploy RESTful API. The Amazon API Gateway basically has access to the Lambda functions where it is built for a specific module that uses RESTful APIs, okay? Access on the public internet, it will be secure using the Amazon Cognito user pool. This will basically turn that request into a static hosting on the website into a dynamic web application by adding client-side JavaScript that makes AJAX calls to the requested API's information that has been submitted by the user. Okay, so so specifically for using AJAX, specifically for developers, this is basically a set of web development techniques using a web technology on the client side, okay, to create a synchronism web application, right? So it's going to be asynchronous, which is the web application portal that can send and retrieve data from a server without interfering with the display and behavior of the existing page, right? So there's two events happening at the same time. APIs integrates with the existing components after authentication has happened, and using the sign in, sign on HTML page, users' data will basically pass and be able to use this portal to select their pickup location by clicking a point on the map and then requesting a ride by choosing the request information that they put in. And so it should have a button, and this button should be in the upper right hand corner where they can easily see it and grasp it. And the user request will go in this browser, and usually there's a code, and that code will basically call the API and inspect it. And the file would be used something called a ride.js file of the website. In this case, the application used the jQuery's AJAX method to make the remote request happen for the user. And this is a blueprint for the serverless web using Amazon services. Thank you.